Hello, and welcome back to another encouraging, inspiring, and including episode of the Achieving Unity Leadership System weekly podcast, where we help turn chaos into connection and purpose into action. Action is so important. I am your host, Mark Intrican, founder of the Achieving Unity Leadership System, which is available at www.achievingunity.com, which is dedicated to all leaders, personally and professionally, in improving our lives through encouraging, inspiring, and including others. The EII. And I hope you remember that because I use it a lot. Because as we go through our day-to-day lives, the more we encourage others, the more we inspire others, and the more that we include others, the more we ourselves are encouraged, inspired, and included. Because we must remember that unity is not a soft skill. It is a true leadership discipline. And today, I am honored to introduce a real conversation with Chip Rome, a seasoned theater educator and speaker who has spent more than 40 years helping students and educators grow in confidence, in discipline, and self-expression. Through his work, he shows that theater is not just about performance, but about building leaders and creating meaningful connections. Chip has directed more than 150 productions and worked with thousands of individuals, transforming classrooms into communities of creativity and leadership. His passion for integrating the arts with education helps people discover their voice and unlock their potential. Chip, it is truly an honor to have you with us today on the Achieving Unity Leadership System podcast. And as we listen to him to navigate division, frustration, and change, we are invited to see not just the challenges we could face, but the potential that exists when people are encouraged, inspired, and included in building a better future together, achieving unity. But first, before we delve into this delightful discussion, let me introduce my company, Reality Focus Dynamics, where it all began. You see on the first screen is what we've kind of talked about. So we're going to jump right into the second screen and talk about leadership sometimes feels harder than it should. Leadership today is seeing disconnection, growing day by day, frustration that's draining people and draining the teams that we work in, personally and professionally. Our good intentions are colliding with real world pressures. Again, over and over, we think about it. We must remember unity is not just a soft skill of being nice, it's a leadership strategy of keeping everyone involved going forward. What we mean by achieving unity: encouraging progress without enabling dysfunction, inspiring action without forcing agreement, including voices while maintaining accountability. We must remember that progress, we must agree in truth, not creating dysfunction, but agree on what we're talking about. Action without forcing agreement, but that we all truly agree, not just nodding our head just to get to the next step, but truly understanding. We have to maintain that accountability because as we do that, we will build better businesses, better lives, and a better world, one conversation at a time. Again, I am your host, Mark Intrican, founder of the Reality Focused Dynamics and the Achieving Unity Leadership System. I work with leaders, I work with teams, I work with families, all this to navigate conflict, change, and complexity. Turn that short-term change into long-term improvements, helping us all move forward with clarity, that unity, and through sustainable action. And I do it by being focused. You'll hear that a lot today. And that's what we must be, focused, facilitating on clear, unified, sustainable execution and delivery. What's my phone number? 303 focused. If you look at the letters on your dial, you'll see that 303 362 8733 spells 303 focused, which brings us together in achievingunity.com. As you can see here on Focused, it's spelled out. We facilitate, we make it easier to have those tough conversations that build trust. And we do that on common ground. We have a shared purpose that we're all working toward. It's clear communication and agreements because they're understood. We want to make sure that we all know going forward. It's unified actions across differences. What we do is across those differences and not finding wrong. It's also sustainable. What is sustainable? We create results that last, that continue. They're sustainable to keep going on and on and on. We do that through execution, which is consistent, responsible action. And again, I continue to talk about action because thinking about it and procrastinating is not action. We want execution of the consistent, responsible actions so we have the delivery of inspired growth and lasting change. So you can see my phone number down there at the bottom again, 303 focused, 303 362 8733. Please feel free to call me anytime during office hours. Why do I want you to call me? Why do I want us to get together? Why do I want to communicate? Because I want us to promote clear, unified, and again, sustainable action starting now, starting today. Reach out to explore my coaching, my courses, my workshops, or speaking engagements to promote unity in leadership. Unity works through the leadership in personally, couples, families, socially, small business, large business. That's where we have to go. We have to grow through achieving unity because it is the path to stronger relationships, inspired leadership, and lasting change. Because in today's world of uncertainty, protection is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Whether you're on the web, on the internet, needing to talk to an attorney, I can help you in all those areas by just getting in touch with me. Let's relieve that stress and put up our stress shield. www.thestress.shield.com. Look at it. Let's talk more. An upcoming conversation. Again, this is a weekly podcast. Put it on your calendar. It will also be on YouTube. Renee has this up on YouTube by the end of the day on Fridays. So if Saturday, start listening. Start looking at it again. The next weeks, pass it on to others. It's for leaders, practitioners, and all courageous voices. Next week, Teresa Cezaric will be here talking about performance success formula, which is successfully pursuing your passion. And that's on April 22nd, next week. Mitch Creighton will be here the following week. Make memories, not regrets. He will show how that achieving unity comes with travel. How many times have we traveled? Why are we not traveling more and learning more? As we achieve unity in the city next to us, and down the block, or in the favorite country you always wanted to go to. Then, the week after that will be Mila Johansson. Talk about the Cinderella monologues and what an interesting story of her parents and her grandparents. Please come talk about this because you'll learn things about women's rights that most people don't know because the women's words back then were shuffled around so the men got credit. Come join us. This is going to be a very interesting conversation. Then on May 20th, Mindy Green will be here create the harmonious home you've always imagined for communication. Also, I think Rachel Christina will be here on the 13th of May. Oh, and all of May is all about moms, all about mothers, all the value that they bring to us. So May is Mother's Day month. It's all about moms and mothers. June will all be about dads and fathers. So again, put us on your calendar. Come talk to us. A lot of great conversations coming up. Here's my QR code. Please, if you can, take a picture. This is my Reality Focused Dynamics QR code. Goes to our site, markintrican.com. All the things that we do through Achieving Unity, all at this QR code right here. Please take a picture. Come talk to me. Let me know if you have any troubles. Love to talk more about that. And now for our guest today, Chip Rohn. Learn more about Chip Rohn with the QR code on the left. He has his YouTube educational stages. You can access that through that QR code. Then the QR code on the right. That's also how you get hold of him. He's available also on Instagram, on Facebook, and his email is there too, educationalstages@gmail.com. Again, take a picture. Love it. Say it over and over. Get this QR code on your phone. Use it. Let's keep that communication going with all of us. Now, a quick introduction before we get started. Today's guest, Achieving Unity Leadership System Conversation, we're excited to welcome Chip Rohn, seasoned theater educator and speaker who uses the stage as a powerful platform for building leadership, confidence, and life skills. As I mentioned earlier, over 40 years of experience directing productions and working with the thousands of students and educators, Chip provides practical strategies to simplify systems. Wow, that's what we need. Reduce the overwhelm and bring joy back into teaching and learning. His work empowers individuals to grow in confidence, in discipline, and self-expression, transforming theater into a meaningful pathway for personal and leadership development. Would you please help me welcome Mr. Chip Rohn? Chip, how are you today?
Fine, Mark. Very nice to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm excited to have you. It's just what you do, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about the STEM and the STEAM if you could, or I can later. But first, let's would you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, what you're doing, and how things are going.
Sure. I am a retired theater educator. I'm from Worcester, Massachusetts, and have degrees from Trinity College, Assumption College, and the Catholic University of America, and started doing theater um, in childhood. My mother did community theater, and eighth grade, I went to a summer camp that was focused on theater and um, participated that way. Didn't have a lot of opportunities in high school, but in college I did. I majored in theater and in economics. And during the summers, I was the drama counselor at a summer camp. And during the year, I taught theater in Sunday school. So the acting shifted more into directing, and I realized that I really enjoy working with other people and pulling together all of the pieces that make a theater production, large or small, come together. Didn't figure that would be able to pay the bills to become a career, but it has, which has been a very happy one.
That's exciting. Glad to see that and hear what you're doing in that process. So let's talk quickly about STEM, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, correct?
Yes, but it's missing the A to turn it into STEAM, the A for the arts, because although STEM is very important and useful, it's very objective, which is some of its advantage, but it's missing the subjective part. What I thought was really interesting in the news this past week or so was the founders of Claude, Anthropic,
Mhm. Yes.
who provided an AI system that the military wanted to use, said, yeah, you can use this, but you are not going to take away the guardrails that will let it make its own decisions. We need the humanity to remain available. And if you can't do that, you can't use our stuff. And they said, well, then we won't use your stuff. But I think the lesson is really important that the subjective, the ability to connect with people and recognize their value beyond the, the objective details and the statistics is very, very important.
I see what you're saying. And when we get that together, we talked about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. You added the arts to it. Science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Did I get that right? There's the right
Yes.
letter. Yeah, so that's STEAM. That's the STEAM process.
Hmm.
Once that steam gets out, it heats it up for everyone. And I like that. It's a great way for us to grow forward in what we do is to go from STEM to STEAM and include the arts to allow us to think just a little bit more.
And in fact, the statistics show that people who participate in arts electives, theater or music or art, achieve better on both math and English scores on their SATs and such. So the ability to work with incomplete data and come up with the completion, the ability to hit a deadline, the ability to work together, all of those things pay dividends down the line and even immediately with subject areas that feel separate, but they're not.
They're really not. I love the way you talk about that too, because it's one of those, Chip, where when we add art to it, we add imagination to that process. We've done so much in science, in technology, in engineering, and in math, but we add art to that. It opens up another door, another path. It's a great way to look at it. I like that. Have you seen how storytelling can even create a safe space for people to express themselves and possibly build some more meaningful connections and communication?
Or I think of theater as being a safe space for exploring the consequences of conflict. Um, I did have a school principal who said, "Well, why do all your plays have to have conflict in them?" It's like they call it drama for a reason. You know, when people behave badly, look what happens to them, and you get to see those consequences from the safe space of an audience. Um, there are we've also taken individual stories and made them into theatrical performances. I did a show we call Profiles, where my students went out into the school and found individual stories from their classmates. And these we crafted into a theater piece, which was presented both locally and at George Mason University. Um, And one other thing that story that connects very strongly for me is a show that we did called To Destroy You Is No Loss, which is about the Cambodian. Um, Now I've lost the phrase, but where people were forced out of the cities and made to work in the fields. And if they weren't um, behaving, they would be shot dead. If they found out that you could read, you would be shot dead. I mean, this was a
Wow.
terrible time in their history. And we found that one of the classmates was the son of someone who had gone through all that, kept hidden that she had been able to read and write, and wrote letters ordering her to the next village, to the next one, to the next one, until she had walked to freedom and eventually made it to the United States. And her child was in our school, and she came and spoke to the actors doing this piece about that time, and that was very, very powerful.
That sounds powerful. And when they're able to talk to the actors, I think that opens up more to their thinking.
Oh, sure. I mean, theater tells so many stories that enlarge our experience vicariously. And for the participants, it's also, can you walk a mile in the shoes of someone else? So it develops empathy, which we could certainly use more of these days.
That is true. I think there's too much of us, and we can even touch on this as far as movies and media, but too many times today we seem to be finding wrong. We seem to be looking for something wrong. Our conversations go to a point almost of insecurity,
Mm,
and that negativity comes out. As you mentioned, there is drama. Life happens.
yeah.
But how many times are we searching for a drama that maybe we don't need in our day to day, in our real life? What do you
Right.
thought? What's your thoughts on that?
I think that the dramas we search for can be satisfied without creating conflict with the people around us. Um, Literature and art provide emotional releases that can be a palliative to the kind of tension that we're feeling these days with all the craziness going on in the world, in the country, and in the world.
There is a lot of craziness. I think you said that very well. It's a great response because it's one of those situations where, I don't know, let me ask, have you observed some common challenges that students or educators are facing when stepping into a creative or leadership role?
Um, as a teacher, every year I have kids graduate and new kids come in. And when you're new, there's tremendous tension always. And I think high school is famous for this. One of the things that I like best about theater is it tends to be a very, very welcoming place. The kids who feel they're not quite seen get seen when they work on a theater production with each other. You've got the star, that's fine, but the person who's, the best they can do is pull the curtain open. Well, if the curtain doesn't get pulled open, the play doesn't happen. So everyone is important. It's that sense of ensemble and community is an essential part of the process of every theater production. Um, did I
I
answer
like
your
that
question?
too. And I like the way you said that, Chip, because even the person that pulls that screen aside, pulls it apart, is important because no matter how great the play might be, or if it's the bestseller, or whatever it might be, and all these actors and actresses are up there, and a lot of them making, we see millions of dollars per film, per action, for being on that stage, they can't do it without somebody opening up those curtains.
And one of the things that distinguishes a high school theater program from the professional theater world is that someone like me is responsible for the directing and the set design and the costume design and the publicity and the tickets. Um, and the only way to handle that and the advantage of the way of handling that is to create student leaders. And so each one of those pieces of a production, every aspect of production, has a student crew chief or crew head with other students underneath them to help the signs get painted, to help the lights get hung and organized, to help the costumes get put together. So I've done shows with a cast of 60, but another 40 people behind the scenes making everything happen. So that, and of course, as kids graduate away, so every new show, the older kids become the mentors for the apprentices coming up. And so you cycle the how-to through and keep the ability to manage all those aspects of production And that leaves me, trust but verify is a lot less time consuming than doing everything. And besides, so I worked in the secondary school, grades 7 through 12, running the high school part. And one of my jobs was to make sure that the parents of the ninth graders knew that they were no longer welcome to assist in all of the wonderful ways they had helped the middle school program.
Hmm.
Because my perspective is if kids can do it, and I have a pretty good sense of what they can do, they should be doing it. Can parents do it faster, cheaper, more efficiently? Yeah, sure, but so what? It's education. And kids can learn to do these things that it empowers them. And that makes the whole experience better.
I like what you're saying because that is so true. And just your whole point there. Education is about learning. And if they're not doing, how are they learning? Keep the sympathy and empathy there for the mistakes that are made, and we all make mistakes. But let them lead in whatever
Mhm.
ways they can, because when they lead, they learn. And even us as adults need to remember that
I
going
know the,
forward.
the medical field talks about see one, do one, teach one. And I don't think we compress it that much, but you have the experience, you participate, you try it on your own, you get better at it, you get good at it, you show other people how to, and then you move on. And those other people take it over and the cycle continues.
And as we talk about that, and like you said, the cycle continues. Are we finding that the arts help the individuals better understand, as you mentioned earlier, the empathy, and for me, helps also with the inclusion within the teams? Does the arts help us maybe see some of that? Maybe relieve us of some of the possibly even prejudices that we might see in the everyday world?
Well, of course. I mean, as I said, the theater is about creating characters that go through difficult stuff, or the playwright would have taken those boring bits away. And for the actors to understand how the characters respond requires getting inside them to recognize that every character is a piece of you that's expanded into the character. There's no such thing as thinking you're the villain. The villains always have a reason in mind why they must do what they do, even though their actions may be heinous. But to yourself, there's always a justification, and an actor needs to find, what makes this person tick, which lets you be more capable of going out into the world and saying, why is that person giving me that expression as we drive past? Well, because you don't know their story. You don't know what makes them tick. Maybe they deserve a little grace and let them um, do what they're doing. And if you can't know their story, don't get angry with them about it. I remember a tale of someone traveling in a train, and he came into the compartment, and in the compartment was a man who had his children there, and the children were misbehaving terribly, and he was screaming and jumping and all. And this man was just trying to like read his newspaper, and eventually couldn't stand it, and said, "Why can't you quiet your children?" And the man said, I apologize. We're coming from my wife's funeral, and as I'm doing the best I can." And the guy who was so irritated calmed down, started playing with the children. It's about your attitude. You choose how to respond to a situation. Um, Actors need to figure out why does this line happen? What is the response? And hopefully, when they out in the world, they're a little more sensitive as a result to other people and how they behave. And there's always a story there.
There is a story there. And I like the way you use that word choose. because life, as I say over and over, life is what we make it. So let's make it awesome
Mhm.
together, achieving unity. And that person, and as you mentioned, did not know the story.
Yeah.
It's a situation for us to begin to ask those questions. Because how was that person when they were young? There are kids I know these days, and even I was. I say these days, there was days that I wasn't following my own rules. I was getting a little bit rambunctious. But what that person did, like you're talking about, starting to play with the kids by choice, by understanding, by choosing, but a whole new spectrum on the same world that was around him just a few minutes earlier, right?
And I know that there are students who have been in my theater program, the after school plays, because they didn't want to go home. Home was not a good place, possibly not a safe place. And being involved in an activity after school um, gave them safety, gave them friendship, gave them purpose, and those are tremendously valuable. So we don't
When
always know, it's not necessarily, oh, I want to be a big star. It can be, I want to have a place to belong.
Mhm.
Um, and I have seen over the years that kids who do theater, like kids who do music, they stay in touch with each other. Those friendships, I mean, you do a play, you bond as a cast very quickly. It gets very intense, and those stick, and they stay in touch with each other over the years.
That's very true. And that's where we get the achieving unity, because when we do things together, as you're talking about,
Mhm.
when I was in school, I was in the junior play, but that wasn't as big for me. I didn't go with the senior play. Sports were more, for me at the time, more important. But I was part of a math team. I was part of a science team at New Mexico Junior College Science Math Bowl.
Mhm.
We stayed together and did things. By doing things together, which I think, as you say, brings the arts into STEAM, the science, the technology, the engineering, arts, and math, put that STEAM together to bring another spectrum that we didn't know about. And I think that goes back to facilitate the F in focus, to put that together so we have another way to reach each other. And as you mentioned, that they do seem to stay together more, but the things we do together, we stay together more. That opportunity to open up another part of our lives where some are more school oriented, more science oriented, maybe more physics oriented, maybe math oriented, and some more English oriented, language oriented, but some are more arts oriented. And
So
by opening, go ahead.
for a number of summers, I worked on something they called Drama to the Core, which was taking theater teachers and, depending on the year, math or science or history teachers, um, and taking those core subject lessons and approaching them using theater tactics. I mean, theater is vocal and emotional and kinesthetic. I was at a meeting of science teachers who were getting ready to teach about photosynthesis. And I had them do a famous theater game called Machine, where each person had to do some sort of movement that represented the next step in photosynthesis. And you put all the movements together and you get this photosynthesis machine. They tried it and the different groups didn't all agree with the way it should work. Like you can't put that sequence here, it goes there. And they got very um, lathered about it. And then they stopped. And I said, listen, if your students got this engaged with how photosynthesis really works, you've won. And they said,
Big.
yeah, yeah, that's pretty good.
That is so true. And that's when I go back to focus because when we come in and facilitate, get the process going, including the arts and the science and the math and engineering, including how that works. How many things, I mean, the same process were invented on our space flights
Mhm.
because of a little bit of artwork, a little bit of thought processing on the ground before that rocket took off. That ability for us to see that. As I see it, I think, let me know what you think about it, but I think we can experience how theater can transform that some of that disconnection into unity by bringing people together because they have a shared purpose. I mean, there is, as you say, there's drama in it. Sometimes there's the good and the bad, but that shared purpose, as we talk about that theoretical bad person, because they think the way they're acting because of their learning. And again, this is talking about theater right now, but also in real life.
Mhm.
They're acting a certain way. Maybe it's the not good person because of what they have learned.
Yeah.
And instead, by being part of this, they can learn that, well, maybe that's not the best actions. Maybe there are better. And as you're mentioning, if we can take one part of the learning, consolidate it within another part or with another part, we open up again more doors that we achieve that unity that helps everyone, right?
Absolutely. Um,
Because the rehearsals themselves, the rehearsals and the acting mirror, I think, in many ways, real life teamwork. And in that stage environment, teaches that collaboration. And as you mentioned, just the people who open the curtains, that trust with each other. Because each player, each part in the play, each one's dependent on the other, right?
well, we start with the words usually. Um, And then what does that look like? Is it in a room? Is the room small? Does it have furniture? What kind of furniture? What's the time period? I mean, the research has to happen. The dramaturg or dramaturge is the person who helps with the research. And then I don't know if you've seen Hamnet, which is a movie that was up for Academy Award. And
Okay.
it's sort of the life of Shakespeare and his wife and son, and the son's name was Hamnet. But the woman who played the wife and got the Academy Award for supporting actress, um, I heard the costume person talking about how they saw the character as the beating heart of this family. And so they dressed her in red. And when things started going wrong in her life, it's like she's bleeding, they started adding a darker red and then a brown. And so as the crises multiplied, the color of her costuming changed in a way which didn't announce, but still felt like this change. And at the very end of the play, when she is sort of come back to life, she's back in a much more vibrant red and some orange. And I thought, this is someone who knows how to do storytelling through color and fabric, just like the lighting people. Um, I presented to the curriculum advisory committee for our county um, to try to get them to approve technical theater as high school classes. And what worked was to put a little, I wish I had one here, a swatch book, a collection of little sheets of plastic in all the different colors that one can put on a light at each table. And I said, you begin, it was a dark and stormy night. Well, in the theater, night is blue. Open your swatch book, you'll find 17 shades of blue. Which blue do you think that you would choose? And how many lights would you put that in? And where would you put them? And how, and somebody said, well, to do all that, you need to have a class. Oh, and they approved the class. Um,
Excellent. Congratulations.
there are so many ways of telling a story, and people who are aren't verbal. I think it was Martha Graham who said, if I could if I could write it, I wouldn't have to dance. Um, but there's
Hmm.
many ways of communicating our ideas, and
Right.
they all enrich our lives as observers or participants. Um, so theater takes all of these things, and I think the theater like takes high school, it chops subjects into separate things, math, science, uh, engineering, English, history, and puts them together.
I think that's
I do
I think that's
remember,
true. I think we need to mix that more, right? I think we if there's ways we could.
and that's why taking the language and adding the research and using those other elements to create this microcosm of a world um, on the stage has tremendous value. I do remember hearing some terrible cursing coming from one of my students some time ago, and it's like, where is he? Let me go find him. And he was on stage working set construction. We had a stage that was a like an auditorium stage with a half circular thrust out toward the audience, and we needed it to be larger. So he was making a thrust extension. I said, "Carl, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm using math." It's like, good for you. Okay.
That's an expression. That's
Yep.
in what he was doing. Interesting. Well, talking to you, Chip, and even thinking about the movies I've watched and being in the junior play, it sounds like theater naturally fosters different forms of leadership. How, with your work, how do students begin to see themselves as leaders through some of these experiences?
Well, at least in my program, which is very student-centered, they know that the only way to put all the pieces together is to take ownership. And so when someone says, "Yeah, I guess I'll try doing props," and then they find some people to work with them, so they become leaders of that crew,
Mhm.
and they get better at it, and they start teaching others. And so the leadership with props, and I'm now thinking of someone who then went on to do that professionally. Um, but working professionally doesn't matter. I mean, I have a lot of students who have taken just the comfort level of speaking publicly that acting provides. No one gets out without speaking publicly, at a school board meeting, at a eulogy, giving a eulogy. I mean, they're around the conference table, among doing business, sales, the law. I mean, these skills are very, very transferable. And
Yes.
all of the pieces that make a production come together require leadership. I made a list I passed along to you of the different jobs that I expect student leaders to undertake. It was like 19 different jobs, 19 leaders, and I would gather them once a week without fail to go over all our backstage crew needs, and the leaders would go around the table and discover that they are each other's solutions. Well, I can't hear this person. Well, maybe they need a microphone, says the sound person. But where are we going to put it on that costume? And the costume person says, I could add in a pocket where the transmitter for that microphone can go. And so now we have the costume person solving a speech problem. Um,
Even a technical problem.
Absolutely. So we are each other's solutions. And I think leaders who are good leaders recognize that and embrace it, and acknowledge the contributions others can make to what they are trying to do, as well as bringing those who are working with them and for them along toward a finished product.
So when we communicate, we can be each other's solutions. So, and what I'm hearing with that is that the way it comes together is when communication improves, both the performance and the relationships will flourish.
Hmm.
And why is it that we're not teaching more of that? And maybe you do. I teach it. I teach the MBA courses at the University of Denver.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things that I did not focus on enough. I realize that now. But to use more examples of the art with the science, technology, engineering, and math to give explanation and share information for better communication.
I have done what I call story selling, corporate workshops that teach people whose jobs are very, there's a company that goes after government contracts. And so the requests for, RFPs, requests for proposals are very cut and dry, or they think of them that way, but they still have to talk to other people to get those approved. Storytelling opens a part of the brain that makes you receptive to what follows. And so to open with a story um, lets the person they're selling to be much more, as I say, open to what they have to say. And they can get, of course, to the statistics and the details. That's fine. Once you recognize that this thing has an emotional touch, we deal with people that we know, like, and trust. And the quicker you can get someone to know you, they're more likely to like you. And the people we like are the people we trust. And that's who we want to do business with. That's who we want to be around. That's who we want to buy things from. So theater where you walk on stage, people immediately are drawing conclusions like, is this person wearing a uniform? Or do they look raggedy? Are they stylish? We, who are they right away? How can I get to know them? I had someone object to a play because the bad guys were, or one of the characters was using very harsh language. And why do you have to do a play that has that kind of language? Because we're establishing their character. These are people who were doing bad things. They died by the end of the play. Hmm. People who are behaving well are doing better. People who are not behaving well do worse. But you got to show them not behaving well. Um, so there's that. The issue of what's appropriate to put on stage is a very live one in all educational theater programs. And I think if we give people ideas, that's a good thing.
It's a very good thing as long as they go with that idea in a positive manner.
Mhm.
And that's what we want to make sure that we're thinking of is that it's a positive process helps everyone, including ourselves. Have you found that rehearsal process can encourage all of the participants to listen better to one another, both verbally and non-verbally? The rehearsal process. So
The the basis of acting is reacting. Acting is reacting. That's a truism. But there's nothing to react to if you haven't heard the person respond to you. It goes back and forth. Um, if you can get something without speaking, you get it. I don't have to ask for this cup. There it is. But if it's out of reach, I might say, could you hand me that cup? And say, well, no, that's my cup. So now you have to. So if there's dialogue, you have to listen for which part is going to help you get what it is that you're after. whether it's to discover the truth or to solve the mystery or to stay out of the way. The listening is essential. Now, I also spent a lot of time training my students to do improvisation. And we had a very good time with this. And it's sort of the opposite because in a play, you know um, you know who the characters are and you develop the story from there. In improv, you create the character, or I guess you know the story, and you have to develop the character. Improv, you come in as a character and you don't know what's going to happen next. And the only way to respond is to pay attention. You have to listen, and you have yes and is a famous improv phrase. And someone says something to you, and however ridiculous it might be, you say yes, and you take it one step further. I understand this is also a good way to deal with people with Alzheimer's, to just take them where they are and go with it.
Mhm.
Um, but improv is what we're doing all day long, too, isn't it? You're
That's
not
what I was about to
sure
say.
what
It's
other
about life.
people are going to do. And so they do what they do, and you react to it. Listening closely is important. It's
It's
crucial.
very important. That's the first part of my lid, wid, bid, rid, gid process of listening and dialogue, like you
Mhm.
said, writing it down, get the basis written down, then break it down. Once you write it down, break it down so everyone understands it for clarity. And then we want to review its dependencies. Is one something dependent on another? Make sure those dependencies are written down, and then you can get it done. And it seems like you're talking about, whether it be improv or a fully written program, that the scripts and the notes provide the things that are written down, provide that clarity and direction, documenting those ideas to help the students and the educators stay aligned, right?
Yes. And also set you up to more capably handle when things are not written down, when they're not clear, so that you can fill in the gaps and make those leaps where everything isn't set out specifically for you, and you still have to get where you're going. I
That's
use
exactly. Go
a,
ahead.
a pattern I call ADDIE, which is analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. So analyze is, well, what do I have on hand and what do I need? Design is, what do I envision? What do I want? Develop is the rehearsal process, the what steps do I have to take with my tools and equipment and skills to get where my vision can happen. And then finally it happens, you implement it. And you're not quite done because then you still have to evaluate and say, okay, how did it go? What do I need to do differently next time? What do I need to never do again? And this formative and summative assessments happen constantly in theater work. We always do a scene and how did it go? How come you made this choice? What if you tried it that way? Let's experiment and make it better and better and better until we hit a deadline. And then you offer it to your audience and hope that it connects with them. Um, and there you go.
And the more real it is, as you're mentioning, you listen, you break it down, the complex productions, and to make it as simple as you can, review whatever dependencies might be there, who's dependent on someone else, who's dependent on the lighting crew, who's dependent where, and how do we get that done? We break that down through those dependencies, and then we action, as I mentioned earlier, we put it into action, put the play into action to provide the results to our
Mhm.
customers and our clients, right?
Yeah.
To our audience. I like that. Oh, we have about 6 minutes left. This has been very interesting. We're going to talk about this and see where we can go and how you're saying, as I see more today, how the stage is where we are every day in our personal and professional life. The
Yeah, kind
improv.
of. Um,
It's
yeah.
one of those, I think it brings reality into place. Because a lot of times we don't understand and even know life in a lot of ways. But when we get on stage and we are playing a part because that's what we're supposed to do, that's what maybe what we're told to do, that's the assignment to play a part. Can we bring that back into our own life and see how we are on a day-to-day basis, also playing a part that we choose, right?
Well, we're always wearing different masks. You know, my teacher self is not the same as my father self, not the same as my grandfather, or a husband self. Um, and the language that we use, we talk some about code switching. You know, the language you use in this situation versus that situation depends on the circumstances we're in and what's appropriate in this theater or that theater, in this circumstance or that circumstance. Um, the advantage of a play and the reason that weapons, I think, should be permitted on stage is that they're not weapons because they, first of all, you don't use real weapons, but there's a predictability. Things on stage have been done over and over and over again, and people know exactly what's going to happen next. The problem with a weapon is you don't know what the next moment is going to bring. So if we have a sword or a prop gun, we tell our students, you must not bring this out of the theater under any circumstances, or it is a weapon because it is unpredictable. But on
Like that.
stage, the repetition, the reliability provides the confidence to then show what feels like it's happening for the first time. We create the illusion of the first time for the audience so they can get charged up. But no one runs onto the stage when Romeo and Juliet are dying to call for EMTs. You know, as I said, that is that safe space. And in our lives, I think we have routines that are predictable, and we like to make sure that we have those going smoothly so that when the unpredictable happens, we have the bandwidth to deal with that more effectively.
To manage it more effectively. Sounds great. All right, Chip. Thank you so much. You only have a couple of minutes left. That was a great conversation. And the more you talk, the more we need another hour to just cover the things that we just discussed. But as we conclude, can you help me with a message that you'd like every listener to remember about the role of the arts in building confident leaders and unified communities? There's something you can leave with our audience?
Sure. I'd like you to know or to bear in mind that artists take on unsettled questions and emotional uh, communication that talk perhaps about risky situations or complex relationships. We can see the consequences of those actions in a safe way. And it can be uncomfortable to watch, and that's really healthy. When we confront what we don't fully understand, that's how we get to know more about each other and become part of a more inclusive and supportive and unified community. So please support the leaders of your local arts communities and go see high school plays. Parking is free. And I'll tell you what you thought of, oh, high school play. There's some really quality stuff out there. Find some good entertainment, make it a terrific date night, and go see a show.
Go see the show. It is great. And if you do have to pay, it's going to the high school.
Yeah.
It would still go to support the high school. So thank you so much. Wow. Chip, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your experience, your heart. And I can feel the heart and what you talk about, your practical wisdom for all of our listeners, your insight into how the arts builds confidence, communication, and leadership has been both inspiring and practical. You've reminded us that when people are encouraged to express themselves and work together, unity truly, truly follows. We're grateful for the positive impact that you continue to make in the lives of students, educators, and communities. So thank you, Jeff, for being such a valued guest on the Achieving Unity Leadership System podcast and for helping us turn that creativity into connection and that leadership into a lasting influence. We appreciate you and look forward to staying connected as we continue achieving unity together. But as we
Thanks very
close
much,
today,
Mark.
it's an honor to have you here. So as we close today's conversation, coming to the end, one thing I think becomes very clear, and that's that real change happens when vision meets action, when people come together with purpose. So thank you for being a valued guest on Achieving Unity Leadership System podcast and for helping us continue turning pain into purpose and disconnection into unity. So as Chip spoke to us today, if you want to go deeper with Chip, what he says, connect with him on LinkedIn. Go back to his site. You took a picture of the slide earlier, the podcast with Chip's QR codes. Use them. If not, this full podcast will be available on YouTube at Mark Intrican before the close of business on Friday. Go back out there, listen to it again. If anything we do at Achieving Unity, Reality Focused Dynamics resonates with you, also follow that feeling. Reach out and connect with me. Again, achievingunity.com, realityfocuseddynamics.com, realityfocus.com, markintrican.com. Easy to get a hold of or call me. 303-FOCUS, 303-362-8733. So again, Chip, any last words before we close?
No, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I think you're doing excellent work.
Thank you.
And I hope that a lot of people will watch your weekly podcast
Thank you.
and connect with you as they see fit. And so thanks for all that you do. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and your guests.
Chip, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you here. Until next time, let us continue to transform that complexity into execution. The chaoses that we see, that chaos into connection, and our purposes into action to make it better. Let us continue achieving unity with all of us. And I'll help you always remember that 303 focused on your phone keypad will get you in contact with me for us to draw forward so we can stay focused on listening in dialogue, writing it down, breaking it down, reviewing its dependencies, and getting it done for better collaboration and better communication. We achieve unity by harnessing that true power of those three magical words: encouraging, inspiring, and including others in building better lives, better businesses, and a better world. This is Mark Intrican with the Achieving Unity Leadership System, reminding you that life is truly what we make it. So let's take that choice. Let us help everyone around us feel seen, heard, and supported in everyday moments, the ones that truly matter, and make life awesome together in unity. Thank you all. Thank you again, Chip, your message, and for highlighting how integrating the arts into education strengthens communication, empathy, and leadership, bringing the A in STEAM to life. Thank you again. Hope to see you all again next week with our next step in remembering unity is not a soft skill. It's not a soft skill. It is truly part of our leadership discipline. Till we're together again. Cheers.